This is Fountainhead Forum 16. I have Avi Esther, who was on staff with the Anarchapulco conference, and she's going to talk with us about the HBO documentary series, The Anarchists. How are you today?
I'm quite well. How are you?
Yes, it's a lovely day, and you're over in Britain right now, so and looks like you're getting ready for the winter season with your sweater there. So
It's definitely chilly here for sure.
yeah, yeah. Does it get that cold over there, or how cold does it usually get in Britain, or does it
I
depend on
mean,
where you are?
I'm on the south coast of Britain, where it's a little bit warmer than other areas here. Um, and the thing with England is that it's quite mild by comparison to other places, but it's a damp cold. So it feels like you feel it more in your bones. Whereas, in places where there's lots of snow and it's a bit of a drier cold, it can be colder, but you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
So let's get onto this. How did you get involved with the Anarchapulco conference?
I went to the second Anarchapulco in 2016, um, at the invitation of Ken and
Ken?
Ken. Oh. Um, I forgot his last name.
Okay,
Shit.
that's fine. Yep.
Can you cut that out?
No, don't worry about it. We'll just keep going. Yep. Ken.
Yeah, Ken, he was the war correspondent, who was one of the speakers at Anarchapulco 2016. Um, it's gonna annoy me to not know his last name.
Uh, we'll, we'll see if we. And I should point out, Avi does not have a.
O'Keefe.
I don't
Ken
believe she's ever
O'Keefe.
interviewed Ken O'Keefe. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're never really interviewed in the documentary, but I see you all the time in that documentary. That's one thing. Yeah. So if you see this documentary, you'll definitely see Avi in this documentary.
Yeah.
So that was
Well,
as an attendee or as on staff.
Ken O'Keefe invited me as part of his team.
Okay.
And so I went sort of in that small team, and I had already done some work with Max Eigen and some other people who were also present. So I had a little bit of a friendship base at Anarchapulco. And so then I was invited um, I'm sorry, I was introduced to Nathan Freeman, and this connection began with myself and the community of Anarchapulco. And then in the following year, I was invited to come as a speaker and workshop facilitator in 2017. And what I ended up doing was essentially picking up a dropped role, which was running the B stage, because that year there were two stages. There was an A stage and a B stage, and there was very little management. Nobody was really running the B stage, and that became quite chaotic. And as we both know, there's always these elements of chaos within that community. And I just applied some organization to the B stage, and it ran much more smoother with very minimal effort from me. And Nathan found that quite impressive, and he then invited me in 2018 to co-produce the whole event with him. And then apply more ideas. So that was the inaugural health and wellness conference that came before the main conference. And so I ended up essentially taking that idea and actually turning it into a viable event, where I curated the whole thing. I ended up hosting it. I ended up managing, producing, far too many roles for one person, but I still accomplished all of that into a high level of efficiency, and everybody who attended really did very much enjoy themselves, and it was quite a safe space for them. And I was doing that while also helping with the preparation for the main event and all of the events that did that. And I made sure that everybody had badges and there was a program made. And I literally filled in all the holes of this great big ship that was more ambitious than practical. And it was fantastic. 2018 was an incredible year. Really set the tone for the potentiality of what it could look like for anarchists to come together in a way that evolved personal projects, community projects, and a way in which community could be forged in a sustainable way. And that, was a very exciting prospect for me to be able to come and participate in that way. Um, uh, uh, of course, there's when working with a community of anarchists, there's going to be levels of ego clashing and not wanting to follow any kind of rule. But with an event production, you have to have rules, and that's
Yeah.
not like some authoritarian thing. It's actually a safety thing that enables the facilitation of people to move through a space and have an experience which is beneficial for them. So that was sort of the push-pull thing. Where does ideology and practicality meet in a sustainable, beneficial environment for people to grow in?
Yeah, and it's also just a matter of, keeping your word. I mean, if you say it's going to start at 8 o'clock and then it starts at 8:30, it's but I've also, having worked on cons, sci-fi conventions and other things myself, there's always things that go wrong that just fall out of the sky, and you don't expect them to happen. I mean, I know, for example, you had one speaker that Mexico wouldn't let him into the country and things like that. It's you have to be prepared for everything, and you're still not, and there's still no way to prepare for everything that can go wrong.
That's all event production. And I think, having produced a number of events, the Anarchapulco was more chaotic than a normal event. We had some incidences, multiple incidences that year that were sort of outside the normal um, event emergency management things that like dealing with like the mafia calling up and being like, if you don't sort this, we're sending people in with guns. It's like, well, okay, right, you deal with that. I'll make sure the stage that everybody's there on time. And like, having to like really split an already understaffed event, an over attended event, because there were probably about 150 to 200 people more than the capacity that we allowed for.
That's another thing. You end up with a lot more people, and it looks like it just grew by. What were the numbers from 2016 to 2018? I mean,
2016 was between 350, not quite 500 people. 2017 was between 500 and 750 people. And then when I came in and we were looking at ticket sales, I came in the October was the agreement, and I came in properly when they gave me the download of everything they had and everything that, this is what they had worked on up until that point. There was 350 tickets sold. And we came in, we had a number of meetings, and I was like, they were like, we're really hoping for like 750, 800, like same numbers as last year. And I was like, with this, like, actually, I think we could hit 1,000, maybe 1,500. And they laughed at me because it was like 2 months until the event. And I was like, no, trust me on this. With organization and these things, these steps taken, we can definitely sell. Yeah. And literally within 3-4 weeks, we had sold 1,200 tickets, and it just kept growing. And then when the event actually happened with just under 1,500 uh, tickets and tables sold, meaning there was a high level of sponsors that had come in and paid for their tables, and that has teams, so those people are all counted, and then ticket sales, and then the people who were snuck in by the people who bought tickets. Yeah,
Yeah.
and, like, the final head counts were actually quite, high. They were somewhere between 1,800 and 2,000 people, including volunteers, staff, speakers, and participants.
Yeah. I suppose you probably get people usually buy tickets maybe 2 months before, or I mean, I don't think you don't get a lot of ticket purchases 6 months before, but I don't think you get a lot of that many ticket purchases at the last minute either, do you? Or
Well, that year we did.
yeah.
That year we really did. It was a phenomenal, very magical year, and it set the stage for actually them to, have a high level of interest in 2019, which I wasn't a part of. I haven't been
Yeah.
back since 2018 because of my experience there, and I was like, "Okay, thank you for the experience. It was magical, but I'm good."
Yeah.
Like, I'm good.
So getting back to what you mentioned, what exactly happened with the mafia, as you said, or the cartels?
Well, they covered that a bit in
Yeah.
the documentary, where there were people who turned a hotel room into a drug den, and
Yeah.
maybe that's a grotesque word to use, but that's, like, what was happening. People would go up to the room and they would do drugs, and, who was selling it, what was going on, I don't know, but it wasn't in alignment or in communication with the mafia, who is very
Yeah.
clear that you pay them the dues,
Yeah.
yeah, and when you're in a country like that, you don't cross.
Yeah.
I don't care what your belief structures are, like, they're the ones who hold very extreme accountability, and if that accountability has a gun at the end of it, you listen.
Yeah. They
You
have
don't try to be more clever because you'll end up getting hurt.
yeah, they have their monopoly, and so apparently, yeah, that was what I wondered. Was there anything? So that was pretty much accurate. That's just what I wanted to ask you about. I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't hear about any of that when I was there, but
Well, the myself, Nathan, and the team, mainly myself and Nathan, took that information and we handled it. In the same way, there was a man who punched a 16-year-old girl or slapped her, and that had to be dealt with immediately, and he had to leave because we
yeah,
can't have that. That makes it an unsafe space.
yeah,
And I handled that. It was dealt with in a responsible and appropriate way. And because again, we're in that kind of anarchist community where there shouldn't be any this, that, or the other. But the reality is we live in a world where there are rules, whether they're being issued from the government or from the mafia, which is essentially another type of governance, or the what's needed to create a space for essentially a whole lot of strangers to come and get to know each other. There has to be boundaries of safety within that space, because clearly not everybody has the mental and or emotional intelligence to navigate those spaces without doing any harm.
yeah. Do you want to say who was dealing the drugs in that room, or not?
And that's not really my place to
Uh,
speak into. My role during that experience was not to deal with that, but to run the event for the 2,000 people that were assembled, to make sure that that was running smoothly, while Nathan went and handled, because Nathan was the one with the relationship with the mob,
yeah,
and he had a rapport from previous years, and so he handled that, which was very highly important, and I handled making sure the speakers were in the green room on time, and that we weren't having people uh, who essentially were high on drugs trying to get into the green room, and you know like the amount of chaos going on behind the scenes, not just with participants but also with voluntary staff, was beyond intense. Like I said, it was the most chaotic event I've ever produced, and not because of the sheer numbers, but because of the mindset and philosophies of the people assembled, including from the leadership of that event.
Does it seem like some people just went there because they wanted to have a drug party? I mean, they didn't even care about the politics. I mean,
I think people went to be in like-minded community, and to be able to open and explore the possibilities of what happens in an environment where you are met in the ideologies and the passions that you feel rejected or isolated in normal society with. And so to be able to come and be involved in an exciting, passionate community that's a yes to your ideologies, that's a yes to what you're passionate about, that is reaffirming the insecurities that one may have in life, and the choices and trajectories, is a highly compelling reason to come. And I know that right now, with all the different subsections of I'm going to use the word community again, but it's really ideologies that I'm talking about. People who come together with like ideologies, who are looking for the connection to others within a community where they feel like an outcast.
yeah, that's true. So yeah, so I really, yeah, the that was the only time they really did the health and wellness track too. I thought that was a really interesting part of it. I mean, I went there for the whole thing and really found it to be a very enlightening week, and it's a very international conference. I mean, I met people from everywhere at that event. So I found that interesting. So, uh, how did you how did you become an anarchist or a libertarian in the first place? So,
Um, I don't know that I am an anarchist or a libertarian.
okay,
I believe that in order for people to step forward and say, I am a sovereign being, and I have the maturity, the intellect, the emotional intelligence, and the wherewithal to responsibly make my own rules and not follow any kind of issued governance, is is something that I believe in. But I don't know that that makes me an anarchist, because I don't actually believe that everybody has the capacity to self-rule. I don't think that a world where people are running around harming one another for their egoic gains is a good or safe world. So I don't actually ascribe to this general philosophy that everybody is able to self-govern. In fact, I think that in order to be able to responsibly be in a place to self-govern, which I do hold as a right for every human, there has to be a level of experiential education which models how that can actually work and be safe.
yeah, so I do wonder sometimes if that does work. This reminds me of a quote in an email I got from somebody in the mid '90s who has since become famous. Most libertarians have a hate the state, blame the state for my failures outlook.
Mm.
And did you see some of that there, or do you think that?
Oh, definitely. But
Yep.
from my perspective, because you know that I'm also a facilitator and
Yeah.
a therapist of sorts. So I have very long background in helping healing processings as well as rebirthing and preparing for an easeful childbirth. So that's one of my backgrounds. I have a
Yeah.
number of degrees and trainings. And what I see is essentially a whole bunch of wounded children who are blaming mommy and daddy for all of their issues, and then that just gets projected onto the state.
Yeah.
And there's this unwillingness to actually step up into a responsible, mature mindset that influences actions, where there's a clarity within the individual, but also within the individual's actions, because it's not all about the self-centeredness. It's about yourself within the community and how we are all in connection and co-responsible.
Yeah. The person who emailed that to me, by the way, was Jimmy Wales of Wikipedia. But and you're a good example of this, because I don't know exactly how old you are, but I bet they still ask you for ID when you try to buy beer.
Um,
you know,
they
I
stopped
mean, yeah.
carding me when I was 36.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I mean,
So
you
that was
look,
the last time I was carded for beer, when I was
yeah, but
36.
I mean, but you look so much younger than you are,
Yeah,
and
thank you.
the way you act at the con. I mean, I just remember thinking, if I ever have a con, I want Avi on my staff. I mean, that just because it seems like you were able to get all this stuff done, and you just kept going.
Yeah.
That really left an impression on me, and you need those kind of people to do that. It's because there's so much work involved. I mean, uh, was there anything in the series that you thought wasn't accurate, or
Oh, accurate. I wouldn't have gone there. What I felt about the series was that um, one, I felt like it brought a lot of closure for many of us who were sort of closer in the closer inner circles of
yeah,
the management and the leadership at Anarchapulco. Um, because of course, after I left, after 2018, there was a very steep decline. And it wasn't just the John getting shot, and it wasn't just um, the poor choices of the leadership and management and the infighting and all of that stuff. It was a confluence of all of those things. And 2019, while it was well attended, killed the conference. And that wasn't just because of the crash. It was also because of the treatment of the
yeah,
participants from the leadership that was then chosen for the subsequent years. And I think how they portrayed it was very careful and very fair and very emotive. Um, I think the true colors of everybody involved were really shown and seen.
yeah,
And I really appreciated the tact with which they acknowledged and honored my role during that time, without any sort of direct naming of me, which I thought was very interesting. And I do understand some of the complexities with the highly emotional individuals who were also more highlighted within that series.
yeah. I know, because you can invest so much emotionally in something like this, and I'm really glad I created a safe space where you felt comfortable coming on here.
Mm.
Uh, and doesn't it seems like it's still going on, of course, so it's not killed, but it looks like to me, though, they do have a lot of turnover on the staff, and that does not make for a well run event if you keep turning over the staff.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of turnover. Um, and they haven't reached the same numbers or audience that they did in those previous years. It's gone back to being quite a small event.
Yeah, and that's what I worked on a sci-fi convention, when I lived in Columbus, Ohio, that went to over 50 conventions.
Hmm.
And one thing I've learned is sometimes you're all frustrated when you have all these people who want to attend, but then when you realize, oh no, people aren't attending.
Hmm.
And I worked on that convention from 2000 to 2004, and the World Trade Center incident killed attendance. I mean, because people did not want to, fly with costumes to sci-fi conventions after that. I think that conference peaked in early 2001, and then the next year it just fell off a cliff.
Well, a lot of things fell off a cliff
Yeah,
in those years around the World Trade
yeah,
Center.
and then you like start to get worried because, oh no, what do we do now? We have to make adjustments. We have to cut back on things. It's really hard to keep those things going. You start to get worried, and people who like things as they are don't want to see things changed. That just makes it really hard. I know they bought out the whole hotel for 2019, and they don't even go to the Princess anymore. I think there were a lot of things involved.
Yeah.
With maybe how I know there was Dana Martin took over, and then now she's out, and
Well, actually, they hired,
yeah,
and then they were trying to have Dana and I come in.
yeah,
And they wanted me to work with Dana, but give me essentially a less credit. And actually, what they wanted me to do was open up my black book, my skills, my resource, and my time for voluntary pay, like to buy my plane ticket and a hotel room. And I was like, I ran this conference last year, and you want to use all of my resources, but not compensate me for it.
oh wow, yeah, yeah, and I don't even know who does. It seems this is something I've noticed with libertarian organizations is they'll get running, and then they want to bring in somebody who's professional, and it's like, are they really with us? It's like you have somebody quit one army, join your army, and because they were a colonel in that army, you make them a colonel in this army, and you realize, maybe they're not really with us, and you put them in positions of authority, and they start, as I've often said, when you got somebody who wants to come into your movement, even if they were a high position, you got to make them clean the toilets and see if they're really on your side.
Well, I think the more appropriate analogy is this. When you're looking at event production, you want somebody that not only has event production experience with this level of intimacy and complexity that this event had. You want somebody who has a high degree of hospitality experience, because the purpose of this level of community-based intimate event that had so many moving parts was the experience of the participants and making sure that everybody had an enjoyable experience and received what they intended on the onset. And the distinction is had event experience in LA, but in terms of her integrity and her hospitality, she was very poor at that. She was very rude to people. She broke a lot of promises. She didn't pay people. She like really upset a high number of people who had either bought tables or were speakers, or there's a laundry list, because of course what happened when those people were upset is I was getting emails saying, can you fix this? She owes me this much for this workshop that I ran and is refusing to pay me. Can you speak to her? And I'm like, no, I washed my hands. I warned you about the transition, and I warned you that it was going to kick you in the butt, so you chose not to listen and you went anyway, and now you have to deal with the consequences of what you were warned about. And if you go to an event and you give your money, and then you don't receive what was promised for the money that you gave, you're not going to want to go back again. And it happened with enough people who have um, large audiences that it literally killed the 2020 event.
Yeah, Yeah, yeah. I don't think the shooting probably didn't have that much impact on the 2019 event because I figure by then everybody who was committed to going had probably already bought their tickets. But I,
Um, it affected some. It definitely affected some of the speakers.
yeah, yeah, because Napolitano he decided he was going to go virtual.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
uh,
Um,
yeah, and this is one pet peeve of mine ever since this in COVID. If you advertise a speaker at a conference, tell me if they're actually going to be there, or tell me if it's just going to be on a Zoom. I don't put them all together, mix them, because you know because I remember telling people, oh, so and so is going to be at this conference, and it's like, oh, he wasn't at the conference.
well, that's a mix. So
Yeah,
he was going to be at the conference,
yeah,
and then it was like 2 weeks or so before
yeah,
he pulled out
yeah,
and changed it. And yeah, they should have
yeah,
informed, but I also understand the sort of juggling and
yes,
chaos in that team, despite bringing in somebody who was whatever,
yeah,
you're going to hit these pitfalls. And again, it's like it's not your sort of normal conference in that the other conferences and events that I've produced in different communities are actually a lot easier because less um there's less chaos. There's always chaos in event production.
oh
Fine.
yeah,
But with Anarchapulco and like I said, the sort of uh, juggling of management or leadership within that team, it has an extra degree of chaos that has to be accounted for with a hospitality framed mind and experience, because ultimately the role of the event producer is to ensure that everybody has the time that they are wanting to have, or the exceeding the expectations of that entry point. That's what makes a legendary or successful event.
yeah, and like I said before, you have other things like like I know I heard there was a speaker that they wouldn't let him into Mexico. They had them all booked, but
We got them in. It was an
okay.
issue, but then we fixed it.
Oh, okay, that's good. Yeah, but you have things like that that happen.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
and those are things you just can't control, or just the speaker, the flight got canceled or something like that. There's
Yeah, but those were easier things. The more difficult things were like half our volunteers were more interested in being there as a free ticket than fulfilling the role that they were given that free ticket for. And so it's like if I turn around to my team and I'm expecting
yeah,
to have 5 people behind me and I go to delegate and there's 2 people there, that means I
yeah,
have to do the job of 4 people. My job plus the 3 people who are missing.
yeah. There's a lot of things like that that happen. I know it's a
Yeah, and most people can't do that. They can't do their job and the 3 other people's jobs.
yeah,
So that was the sort of juggling and sort of what was it? Like, I was up at a 7:45 downstairs by 8:30 so that everything could begin on time, and then managing everything straight through all the events till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, getting up and doing
yeah.
it again for 10 days in a row.
Oh wow, yeah. I know that's how that works. I mean, yeah. So and you'd probably been there for at least a lot of time even before the event started, right? I mean,
Yeah, I was there for, what, like a month before? Because it just, I wouldn't have been able to do it if I hadn't been on location for a month, liaising with the hotel, making sure all the different moving parts were done, making sure we had the programs and the badges and but it's sort of like, for example, when the main conference started and there was that queue of people who were just waiting there. And it's like, well, where's the person? I had delegated that and I had a yes. And there was like, okay. And we parted knowing that they were going to sort that out, but it just never happened. And there was no communication on the walkie talkies. And it was just, while I'm literally ending the health and wellness part and helping the beginning of the main part. And it was sort of like, well, within that sort of chaos base, there was so much more me picking up all the dropped balls.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, if I know, and I can then sort of time manage for myself. But if you say to me, I've got this, you get that, thank you, and then you don't go do what you say you're going to do, that just leads to event breakdown.
Yeah.
So that, and there was that element in there because there was a lack of reliability on team for a variety of reasons.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I can't help but notice, but how much is Jeff Berwick even involved with running the con at all? Because I've been to other events where the owners of the events, you always see them there, but he didn't seem to be there all that much. And or maybe he
Um,
was just in an office somewhere doing other things,
Office?
or just in a room somewhere.
You met Jeff? Like,
No, well, yeah, or just yeah, or yeah,
what? In an office somewhere. What? More likely to,
yeah,
um,
or with his 4 dogs, right? I think he's got 4 dogs. Is that right?
he's
Yeah,
more likely to be at a bar than an
yeah,
office. Like, come
yeah,
on. It's Jeff.
yeah. That was the biggest disappointment. I said, Jeff, I didn't get to meet your dogs because he's got 4, right? I think.
He's more than that.
Yeah,
Yeah. I know there's a lot of dogs at his place. A
yeah,
lot of dogs.
yeah. But I just, yeah, that was just something I noticed. I wasn't sure how much he was involved in the day-to-day operations, but it doesn't sound like he was involved that much. It's
He wasn't really. It was mainly Nathan and I.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and of course Nathan is no longer with us, unfortunately, which was a rather
Hmm.
tragic event. I mean, I heard lots of nice things about Nathan. I mean, people who lived there, and Nathan was always nice to me too when I was
Yeah.
there. So it seemed like he was nice to everybody. It's unfortunate he wasn't involved, and I thought Terry was a really good MC too, and
Hmm.
yeah, Terry. So did you have much interaction with the community that was living there? I mean, because this really seemed to be as much about the community there as it was about the conference. I mean, what was your experience with the community there?
Well, you know, I definitely interacted a lot with the community that was there. I, again, because of my innate understanding of trauma-based causations and choices, what I saw was a lot of hopeful, idealistic people who were deeply traumatized, trying to create something in quite a dangerous background and in denial of the realities of their environment. A lot of various different types of drug use that could only lead to psychosis, and a lot of ego clashing. And whether that was clashing or moving into agreement, it was very high school. And I have a very sort of low threshold for how much I actually want to be involved in spaces and in groups like that, because essentially my job is to be present for people like that, to help them have transformative experiences. And so it's a bit too much for me to have that be my job and have that be my socializing space.
Yeah,
And I differ from that body of anarchist ideology that was present, in that I my main um, ideology is actually integrity, to be in integrity with yourself and to do no harm. And there's gradients of that, and where do we stand up and say this is not okay, and where do we just say, okay, it's just a tantrum that's going on. Let's just give it some space. And to be able to navigate those complexities of community relationship with mature, responsible action. And actually, I can't say that I met so many people that had that similar um, ideology or space of um, responsibility. And actually, my belief systems clashed quite a lot because the majority felt that they should be able to do what they wanted, wherever they wanted, however they wanted, as long as it didn't cause any harm to other. But their definition of what harm was significantly smaller than what my definition of harm is.
Yeah, I when I went there in 2018, I did at least think, hey, maybe this is a community where I might want to go live abroad. And after being there, I thought, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like, as and I definitely saw the kind of people, I they didn't seem like the kind of people that would do what they said they were going to do. I mean, if they said they'd call you at 5 o'clock, they might call you at 5 o'clock, but there's a good chance they wouldn't call you at 5 o'clock.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they just seem to have this attitude. Well, that this is just an arbitrary rule. And I said, no, it's not. You know,
Well,
uh,
if our word is unreliable,
yeah,
then our words have no meaning.
yeah,
We
exactly.
are not accountable to ourselves, our word, and it breaks trust. It breaks trust with ourselves. It breaks trust with others. And what kind of relationship can you have if trust isn't at the foundational level?
Yeah. How did, if you don't mind me asking, how have you processed some of your trauma if you've had it? Because you seem like you just seem like you're still always managed to stay positive. I mean, I'm always amazed by people like you. I really am.
I mean, I've had an inordinate amount of trauma in my life. It's. I mean, I think I've been in therapy since I was 15, and
Yeah.
I am significantly older than that now.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, my children are that age now, so
Yeah.
it's been a while. And I've variously endeavored to understand the roots of what my patternings are, what my triggers are, and to move through spaces of grace where I, catch negative patterns of behavior, and then first after, then during, and then before. And by allowing myself that spaciousness to become aware of patterns and behaviors that are from trauma that hurt myself and or others, intentionally or unintentionally. And then to be able to catch it, first acknowledge, oh, I just did that. Okay, I'm doing it, but I can't stop. Okay, it's about to happen, but I can't stop. Okay, it's about to happen, and now I can actually stop this and be able to train myself out of essentially sympathetic. When I say sympathetic, I mean fight, flight, freeze
Yeah.
behaviors that are rooted in somatic emotional trauma. And this is me describing something that I've been doing for well over 20 years. It's like roughly 27 years I've been in this awareness of the depth of trauma that I've endured and experienced over my lifetime, and uh, doing my best to stay so present with what is and allow myself to fully feel it and let it go. And so then there's always these accessibility within to reach for the beauty, to reach for the love, to reach for um, the inspiring. And that's not to say my life is like perfect and I'm always happy, because I'm not. I definitely have a bitch side. Ask anybody who knows me well. but it's in balance with the rest of me. And if I mess up, then I will always sort of withdraw and take my time to process what was going on with me and have a conversation which helps to remediate and restore connection, whether that's a close connection or a more distant connection, that clarity of communication. And speaking from the I understand my part of this and taking responsibility and accountability for my side of it is, what enables me to feel, one, that I'm in alignment and trust with myself and my integrity, and two, that I've done my best to clean up my side of the street. And then, I'm kind of free to not have, the guilt or the numbing or the issues that rustle up in everyday life when people are living in denied trauma.
Sounds like to me you didn't think Acapulco was a very safe place to have a conference, did you? I mean, do you think they would have been better off having it somewhere else, or?
I really enjoyed my time in Acapulco. I even that 2018 year
Yeah.
was deeply communing with the land and the Nahau ancient peoples and gods, and had some extraordinary experiences walking along the Diamante Beach. And I took about a dozen people up to the archaeological ruins at the top of the mountain overlooking Acapulco. And we went in and we paid respects to the ancestors there at that prehistoric sacred space. And I, had an incredible experience in the cave of the bats with these bats. And then I walked into the back cave behind it that's in alignment with the spring equinox. And it was maybe 10 days before the spring equinox, maybe 9 days. And then I walk into this back cave and it's just filled with these moths, like thousands and thousands of these like light white powdered moths. And they were just everywhere. It was exquisite in this incredible prehistoric cave with this sort of strange window that comes down into that back room. And that I got to not only experience that grace and magic of that environment, but to bring people to there to really be able to connect their hearts and their bodies to the ancestors, because I am a big proponent of the ancient future. And irrespective of our ideologies, when we are able to honor and respect those who came before us, whether they're of our lineage or of the land that we live on, and we ask for their blessings and we ask for their favor and we ask that we be shown how to honor them, then we will be gifted that which helps us create sustainable futures for our children and our children's children. And that's, again, part of my foundational structures and belief systems. And so, like, I loved Acapulco. I felt that the land itself kept me safe. I felt blessed and loved by the ancestors there and by the people. So personally, I did not feel afraid in Acapulco. And I sat with some of the mafia peoples, and we talked and we shared, and it's very clear, that's mafia. Don't fuck with them. If they say, this is okay and this is not, don't do the thing that's not okay. Like, it's very simple, so for me, because of that foundation of integrity and respect and willingness to see, even if it's not comfortable, I always felt safe and okay.
Yeah, yeah. I just wondered. And it is an absolutely beautiful place. I mean, I can understand why it was so popular at one time. I just wondered. I mean, what was the? Do you know what the deal was with the fork? Were you involved with the fork at all, or
No,
anyone
I
John's
wasn't at all. And I mean,
I wonder what the motivation for that was. I guess they just wanted
I'm reticent to speak ill of the dead,
to.
and
Okay.
I didn't know John. well. I mean, I met him. I, asked him to stop trying to essentially poach our participants, like, because they would come in, both of them, they would come in and they would sort of walk around with like little darty eyes and, spread their flyers and talk shit about the conference. And it's like, sweetheart, that's wrong action.
Yeah.
And I know that there was drama between Lisa and them, and therefore Nathan and them, and my partner in that experience, my professional partner in that experience was Nathan.
Yeah.
And we had a friendship and a mutual respect that facilitated the impossible task that we did in running that conference that year. And so I was always going to side with Nathan when people are coming in to be disruptive to an event that I'm co-producing. And they caused chaos in the name of their ideology, their belief systems, which was clearly disrespectful to what we were doing. But
Yeah.
they didn't care, and they felt right and justified in their actions. But all that does is highlight the immaturity within that community.
Yeah, certainly. Speaking of also, I don't know, did you ever see that video also where Larkin Rose basically gave them an ultimatum and said, if Adamkokesh comes back, I'm not coming back? Or, I mean, Larkin basically gave them an ultimatum about that. And they decided, well, we'll keep Larkin and not invite Adam back.
Yeah, but Larkin and Nathan were friends, and Adam was a shit stirrer. So that was an easy decision for them to make. And again, that none of those people are my friends. Yeah, I don't know them personally. I know them from a production capacity and as sort of people that I've shared a bit of time and space with within a conference. So, I have no strong feelings about either of them either way. I personally don't want to spend time with Adamkokesh. I'm very okay with him not being a part of my world, and that's like that. That's the bottom
Yeah.
line of it. And equally, I think Larkin has a lot of really great things to say, and I think that he and Amy.
Amanda.
I'm so
Yeah.
sorry, Amanda.
Yeah, Amanda.
Forgive me. Clearly they're not close friends of mine or
Yeah.
acquaintances.
Well, you had
You
the
know,
first two letters, right? Yeah.
yeah, it was close.
Yeah.
And I don't dislike Amanda or Larkin. I actually agree with a lot of the stuff that they say. Not everything, but a lot
Yeah.
of it. But my life is not lacking for them not being
Oh, yeah.
close to me. Like it's okay. Like there's no ill feeling or ill will. So it's it feels to me anyway very neutral. I'm quite
Yeah.
unbiased in that regard.
Well, and I think a lot of people, Larkin is one reason people go to that event. So I think,
Hmm.
you sell more tickets with Larkin than you'll sell without him. So
Yeah. Well, Adam. Anyway, I don't want to dissect Adam and his
yeah,
career choices.
yeah, I probably don't either at this point.
Yeah,
And that also remembers too. We had an earthquake at that conference.
we did. We
Yes,
did.
you know, we all walked out for we all walked outside for maybe 5 minutes, and then we went back in. But and then the
Well,
earth
it was
epicenter went up.
slightly longer than that because
Yeah,
I was one of the people ushering everybody out, communicating with
yeah,
hotel staff, um, making sure that because the building had to be assessed first before we could allow people back
yeah,
in, and it took 5 minutes for the earthquake just to stop.
yeah,
And then we took 5 minutes to assess all the rooms, make sure that everything was structurally okay, and then to get all the cats back in to the kitty house to listen to
yeah,
them speak. And there were like, I mean, we had 1,500 chairs in that room, and every chair was sat in, and there was lined from the stage to the whole of that double aspected room around with people standing. And it was remarkable actually to see that, and to be able to get everybody out safely, make sure the space was safe for everyone, and then get everybody back in, and actually only be a half an hour behind schedule, I thought was remarkable personally.
Yeah, and there wasn't a big stampede or anything. It was kind of interesting in that sense. Yeah, but that was, I mean, that was the epicenter was about 100 miles away, I think. But that was the first time I'd ever experienced that, so it was interesting to have that happen too. So yeah, and of course, I also remember. I think you also gave an advisory to people to be careful in the water because apparently there was something that may have happened there where somebody got into a rip current or something.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
the rip currents were really strong. They're really strong at that beach, and you have to know where they are, or they'll grab you. Like, um, even what, waist high?
Oh wow. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, and there were a number of people who were nabbed by the rip currents, and those are highly active waters. So there's snakes, there's eels, there's fish, there's sharks, there's things that will bite you. Yeah. And if you don't know how to, one, avoid a riptide, two, what to do if you get caught in a riptide, that's quite a dangerous situation. In front of the hotel, there were lifeguards, so that was safe. But if people wandered down a little bit beyond the lifeguards and then got pulled out by a rip current, they could drown.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And that yeah, that was a nice little yeah. Of course, with the conference, I didn't really spend a whole lot of time to go into the water, but it was certainly
Oh,
an
it's
experience.
great. It
Yeah.
like some of like the most fun surfing and like playing in those waves. The water is so warm and the sand is, it's like it glistens like diamonds. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, that's one thing amazes me. The way you just see all of this beauty and everything around you, it's that is such a gift.
Oh, thank you,
I mean,
Chris.
you've always, I mean, how do you do that? I mean, but yeah, so
Is that a real question you want me to answer?
yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah,
How do
yeah.
you do that? How do you see the world as beautiful?
I guess I guess maybe it's because it's not easy for me to do that, and I'm always in awe of people like you. It's
Well, I think that um I think that there's a space when anyone is really present and able to see the light and the shape and the contours of the world around them, and to feel the the elements which make up the fabric of our environment and ourselves as being a reflection or an extension of one another, then beauty and love and truth are inherent in life itself. And that's again part of my makeup and part of my foundational perspective in the world. So that's just kind of who I am, but it's all things that can be cultivated. It just takes one practice in one little area to notice when it's 5, 6 o'clock at night and the sun is just casting the most exquisite golden light on the concrete in front of you, and just be able to, for that moment, stop and take a breath and just see the exquisiteness of that saturation and allow it to penetrate your heart. And then, that little moment will lead to another moment, will lead to another moment. And then it becomes ingrained after a few weeks into your perspective and way of seeing the world.
who are some of the thinkers that have influenced your outlook on this?
Oh,
Any books or any movies or
um, let's see. I mean, I think one of the first philosophers that really struck me was actually she was a philosopher named Simone Weil, or Weil, Weil, and she sort of goes back and forth in her philosophies or philosophical writings about the exquisiteness of life from the perspective of pain, and how that then opens you up to the grace of God and pleasure. And that she was initially one of the um, people who helped me to understand that balance within myself in an articulate way. Um, Alan Watts, variously, a lot of the psychedelic um, uh, people, including Wasson and Leary, and you know, a lot of sort of the way that they conceive and always come back to this understanding that the world that we live in is so much more multidimensional than we can perceive until we begin to want to perceive the oneness in all things, and understanding those non-dual experiences and philosophies. And then the list goes on. There's a number of people, including earth wisdom based um, um, teachers who really hone in this rooted connection that we are as humans having this experience.
Yeah, you said Timothy Leary and who? Wasson?
Wasson, Gordon Wasson.
Yeah,
Um,
I looked up Simone Weil. Yeah, she was French, but Gordon Wasson. Yeah, Gordon.
mm,
Yeah, sounds like maybe you just got these. Did you have experiences with psychedelics, or do you want to?
I'm a psychedelic facilitator.
What do you facilitate?
Um, I
If
was
you
just
want to,
looking up, yeah, Gordon Wasson. I remembered his name correctly.
yeah,
Wonderful.
Robert Gordon Wasson. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so I predominantly work with fly agaric, which is the toadstool, the classic toadstool, the red one with the white spots.
Oh, okay.
Um, One, it's a completely legal entheogen. Two, it's been used for tens of thousands of years in different cultures across the entirety of the Northern Hemisphere, and has incredible lore and mythology and deep mystic roots. Again, like I said, across the Northern Hemisphere for thousands and thousands of years in a multiplicity of indigenous cultures. Um, and there are other entheogens that I facilitate for, but my main focus is working with Amanita muscaria, or commonly known as the fly agaric.
How do you spell that?
Which
Fly agaric.
fly, FLY, agaric, AGARIC.
Okay. Oh yeah, it's a. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure for there anybody who wanted to look that up. So I had not heard of that one. So, but yeah, it's definitely the mushroom with the red toadstool. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah. So you must have been interested in getting into that then. So yeah.
Well,
So
I mean, I've been in the various communities of the psychedelic underground for 27 years. Um, the transition from explorer to facilitator was it was quite easy in some ways, because I've been facilitating altered states, of transformational altered state processes since 2011. And in 2017, I was asked to facilitate for a group of women who wanted to have a full moon psychedelic experience, and they asked me to facilitate them. And I was kind of like, okay, I can do that. And it was beautiful. And, it was actually easier than facilitating some of the things that I have in terms of intensity. It was less intense, if I'm honest. And it's just kind of grew from there. And actually, I not only do I run my own retreats and courses working with the Amanita muscaria, and uh, people come to me with different entheogens that they want to journey on, and they want me to facilitate them. But I've also been now invited to Evolution Retreats, which is a luxury retreat center in Jamaica, as one of their facilitators. So it's growing from strength to strength with the transformational work that I help people to have.
Do you think what do you think about the whole psychedelic community that seems to be growing right now? I mean, I went to Peru in, 2017 for ayahuasca. I mean, what's your take on all this? I don't know if you've had ayahuasca or not, but
I
or
have had ayahuasca.
DMT or yeah.
To be fair, I've journeyed with most entheogens. There's a few I won't touch because they're I'm just not willing to go into those realms. They're just too dangerous.
Like Toei or
No,
but yeah.
like heroin is nothing I've
Okay.
been interested
Yeah.
in. Like Datura, never
Yeah,
been
Datura is
interested.
also called Toei. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah, Datura's just not one I want to. It's just a very clear no from me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've
Yeah,
heard it's. Yeah, I've heard. Yeah. That's one thing too. You find out too is you find out a lot of these various plants have a lot of different names. Like look at all the different names for marijuana, or look at all the different
yeah,
names for ayahuasca. Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, because
I, I
I
think
said Toei and you didn't know what I was talking
yeah, I
about.
didn't know that
Yeah,
Datura was called Toei.
yeah. Like it's spelled like toe, but with an accent on the final e. So yeah,
Sh- okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The just to answer your question though, the sort of the upsurgence and popularization of psychedelic tourism, I think, is uh, a bit of a Wild West style of um, experience, and I have a lot of criticisms of it, because again, my premise is that as a facilitator, you make sure that one, you do no harm to yourself, to the participant, or to the environment. And when we're working with entheogens, we're working with spirits. You're not just working with a plant, you're working with a spirit. And these spirits have their own agendas. And for me, it doesn't make sense. It's lacking logic and it's completely of ego to journey somewhere like I know a lot of people who go down to Peru to do psilocybin. And it's like psilocybin doesn't grow in the jungle. And they're like,
Yeah,
yeah, I know, but that's where we're gonna go. I'm like, why?
yeah, yeah. You don't have to go. Yeah, and you don't have to go to Peru to get psilocybin. Well, also I know some of those people who have ayahuasca retreats up around Machu Picchu, and I'm like, uh,
Why?
it doesn't grow at Machu Picchu. And another thing I've said too is if you've ever been at a high altitude like that.
Oh my God, it's so intense.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I mean, so you're throwing somebody into an ayahuasca ceremony and as well, and I mean, I remember going to Bogota, and that's 3,000 feet less than Machu Picchu, and that just about killed me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm just thinking like, I definitely would not recommend anybody go do that if they're not used to being at high altitudes.
No, it's insane.
Yeah.
But the sort of the twofold complaint that I have with the current structures are, one, if you're going to travel um, for the purpose of feeling like what you're traveling to is somehow more spiritual, then do the entheogens that grow on the land. Otherwise, you're in denial.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing spiritual about flying somewhere to do something that, like, it's not thing.
Yeah.
If you're flying somewhere to have an experience, and it's not about the sort of spiritual aspects of it, but about the luxury, or about the beauty, or about the cultivation or curation of the experience, awesome. But be clear before doing psychedelics about the true nature of your intention. And then the next thing that is a bit of a minefield is that there's such a variety of facilitators and such a limited amount of knowledge about the actual interactions that are happening within the person, which are inclusive of stacking, contraindications, and sort of readiness to journey into these areas that can create psychosis. And because it isn't regulated, and because there's such a clash between the sort of red banner, drugs are bad, and Kai, just don't do them, war on drugs, and the no, drugs can be therapeutic, and we can do it like this and we can do it like that, but there's this sort of hunger for being able to take something and have all your stuff be fixed, and that level of desperation leads to bad choices. And within a field where there is a lot of people who don't have the same level of integrity, and a lot of people who do have the same level of integrity, it's a bit crazy. And so there's a lot of harm and death
Yeah.
that is happening, as well as incredible transformations, and um, having these incredible epiphanies that do move people forward. And it's a mix right now, that I really genuinely hope to see um, cultivated into something that is a bit more regulated. I don't mean by a governing body.
Yeah.
I mean amongst peers, that we come together and we stop infighting, because there's a lot of infighting within the psychedelic communities and the psychedelic underground. And a lot of psychosis, a lot. And that we are able to find the like-hearted, like-minded, like-bodied spaces that not only create a sustainable foundation within the facilitating colleagues, but that we are then able to create these bases of safety for people to come and have these mystical experiences, which help them to heal.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad you clarified that thing about regulated, because things are always regulated, but you want something that is regulated by the customers and regulated by the industry itself, not where
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah. No, I'm
because
very clear about that. I don't
what we
need.
have right now, yeah, what we have right now with pharmaceuticals and healthcare is a complete disaster.
Yes, I
You know,
totally agree.
and speaking of healthcare and stuff, how have you handled the last the pandemic and everything that's gone on since then with all this? It sounds like you've just kind of managed to block it all out of your life.
I mean, it was like 2 years where I got to, like, hang out at home with my kids and, like, go for walks and not have to do anything. Like, I really liked it. You know,
Yeah.
I at that point, I was, not like rolling in the money or anything, but I was financially stable, and I have a wonderful home here in the south of England. And, I live in an ancient woodland, 20 minutes from beautiful sandy beaches. And I'm surrounded by ponies and donkeys and cows and wildlife. And there's some really lovely people around me, in the wider community here locally. And, you know, I couldn't imagine a better place to be during lockdowns. If I'm gonna be locked anywhere, this is it. Like, for me,
Well, it's just
I love it.
amazing. It's just amazing to me though that you don't seem angry about it, and that's because a lot of people in the liberty movement I think have gotten they were really got really angry. They were already kind of angry, but they got angrier after this. And
Well,
I don't know if that produces your best decisions, but
it
yeah,
doesn't produce there are mature and immature ways of dealing with anger. I know because I do both.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm absolutely fallible when it comes to anger. Anger is not my most comfortable emotion. I do stupid things when I'm angry. Most of us do.
yes.
But
I think
why
anger.
why choose anger? What are you really angry at?
Yeah,
Yeah. Are you really angry that you are being asked to stay inside or wear a face mask? Or are you angry because when you were 3 years old, you were hit because you did something you wanted to do and that wasn't allowed? And is that displaced anger that you are
yeah,
projecting onto some governance? Because there's a wider picture here. It doesn't matter whether or not COVID is real or fake, or viruses are real or fake. The reality is there were a high level of people getting very, very sick. And that meant that we needed a greater focus on how to keep ourselves and our families healthy. And if you don't understand what that means, what a great opportunity to look for it, to
yeah,
find it. That's more useful than
yeah,
getting angry about something.
yeah. And I don't think it's any accident that a lot of the people who got sick from this were already in really bad health to begin with.
That's not true. I know plenty of, like, hundreds of healthy people who got very sick from COVID. I had it for, like, 3 weeks, and it was brutal. But, I've had, what was it? I had walking pneumonia once. It was
Yeah,
similar,
yeah,
sucked.
I can
Not
imagine.
great, but, you know, eat your vitamin D, have your zinc, make sure that you're, consuming that which helps to boost your immune system. Find the herbs which help to clear your lungs.
Yeah,
I mean, between CBD and Amanita muscaria, like, actually the majority of the pain and discomfort was
yeah.
eased and not felt, and then I kinda just
Yeah.
slept until I felt better.
What do you think about plant consciousness? I know in the rainforest, the people think that the plants are conscious and that they do communicate with us. Do you think that's true or not?
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
Not just in the rainforest.
Yeah. I think it's just because there's so many plants down there and it's such a vibrant and lively place.
There's
And
so many plants everywhere. In fact, I firmly believe that the earth will always grow your medicine. And if you were to walk outside where you live right now and look at the weeds that grow between the cracks, look at the weeds that grow in the grass, I guarantee you your medicine is growing outside your front door.
wow. Oh, yeah. We could talk about all this or just give this a whole nother conversation sometime. It's
Well, happily. So, it's something I'm in a lot of
yeah.
growing number of dialogues with. So tomorrow I'll be talking about microdosing with Amanita muscaria, the fly agaric,
Oh yeah.
and
Wow.
the medicinal benefits of that. That'll be on Clubhouse. And then next Monday or Tuesday, I'm being interviewed by a podcast here, again talking about plant medicines and plant consciousness. And then there's another one, like, there's a lot of interest to hear these understandings, because not only do I understand what a lot of these entheogens are doing at the chemical level and how they affect our neurobiology and our physiology, but I also understand the sort of nuanced subtleties, the benefits and the drawbacks and dangers within the wider community, and sort of where there's extreme benefit and when and where and how to navigate what's dangerous. So, you know,
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people. It seems like there's a lot of people in not just in psychedelics, but in a lot of various what I'd call self-help communities and stuff who just aren't. They're not what they say they are, and they're just.
yeah, there's a lot of that
And
everywhere.
I'm watching. I mean, I've watched some communities implode that I've been a part of, and it's just like, it's like, are these people really what? I don't know. What some people like to use the term spiritual bypassing, or
Oh, there's a lot of that.
or or their shadow, so to speak. If you know what I mean, when you hear the term, your shadow is taking over, that kind of thing. It's hard to find people who really are just not maybe try, but I think everybody's just trying to make sense of what's happened.
Well, I think,
You know,
I mean, I have shadow, you have shadow, we all have shadow. It's not like we shit and it smells like roses. Our poop stinks.
yeah,
But what are you going to say? What is your dialogue? What is your perspective? And how are you presenting your stinky poo? Are you coming forward and saying, my poo smells like roses? Or are you coming forward to be like, whoo, light a match? I would
yeah,
sooner, and I would always be the person who's like, I lit a match, but you might want to light another one. It stinks in
yeah,
there. Rather than, either pretending it didn't happen, or, there's it's all around shame. Yeah. And when we are internally strong enough to feel the shame and stand in that, then our shadows can't control us, because we're not afraid of the shame. We're not afraid of the what we are imprinted to be afraid might happen if. And when people don't have the capacity or the willingness to feel those feelings,
yeah,
then their shadows and their poop runs the roost.
yeah,
And that's where we get these, the bypassing and the masks of right action as opposed to being in right action.
yeah,
And that's just our maturing. And I say our because I'm a part of the human collective, and I acknowledge that, we collectively are growing and maturing as an imperative of our collective evolution.
yeah. Have you ever read Ayn Rand?
I what?
Read Ayn Rand.
No, I haven't read Ayn Rand.
Okay, that just seemed like I don't know. I jumped from topic to topic, so that popped into my head. But yeah. So is there? Yeah, you did mention some of the things you'd avoid. Is there any other paradigm you've read? I mean, I don't know if you have any opinions on people like, say, something like The Secret, or Marianne Williamson, or Teal Swan, or somebody like that, or any other gurus that you think are really good or really, really not so good.
On the whole, I don't like gurus.
Okay, and maybe
Uh,
that's a bad word, but yeah,
I I despise people who present a freedom, but
yeah,
are entrapping and feeding energetically off of those who follow them. I find it
yeah,
deplorable and sickening.
yeah,
And there's a lot of that. I find it deplorable and sickening where people don't walk their talk or own up to when they're out of integrity. I think it's disgusting, and I think it's something I would expect from a teenager, but not from a grown person, not from somebody who's stepping forward as an elder, as a wisdom keeper. And I think that a lot of the people who are in these positions of leadership and power are immature in their energetic and in their energetic choices, and in the way that they feed off of those who follow them. I very much feel that true leadership is about service, not about gain. And for too long, we only have had models of leadership, which is about taking. And that's not healthy and that's not good. And while it can help to catalyze the willingness in the person who is in student relationship with these gurus and teachers into spaces that could further their evolution, surely we are at a precipice where we can start learning through pleasure rather than chronically learning through pain. Surely humanity has experienced enough pain that we can start collectively saying, actually, we have had enough and we know that there's another way, that the willingness to take responsibility for your words and your actions and have integrity is greater than the wanting to, have a primal scream and do whatever you want and have a tantrum if you want to have a tantrum, or give your authority away to whomever the new projection of mommy or daddy is. So.
Do you think the general public wants to follow authorities that have integrity? Because after 2020, sometimes I almost feel like they want to follow sociopaths. It almost seems like they want to live under an abusive government as opposed to a government that actually governs.
I don't think that they want to live under an abusive government. I think they just want to feel safe. And at the moment, at the governance level, all we have is bad and worse. So people are choosing bad over worse based on what they perceive bad or worse to be. And I think that's a very sad turn of events. And I strongly believe that there is an upsurgence of different possibilities, that if those communities can stop their infighting, then there really could be a potential for a movement to come forward to help create a better solution.
Okay, well, that's good. Do you have a website or anything, or?
Oh, it's myname.com. aviesther.com.
aviesther.com. Yes, I should check that out more often. Is there anything else you want to say about the anarchists or Anarchapulco, or your experiences there?
I think the only sort of last thing that I really want to acknowledge with this documentary that's come out was that after everything that had transpired, the good, the bad, the ugly, the exquisite, the beautiful, the bliss state, what I was left with was just how much I really did care about a lot of people who were there. And irrespective of our differences, our similarities, our clashing, and our friendships, really what remains is just how much I really loved a lot of the people I considered friends, like really profoundly. And that because of Nathan's death and that reminder that life is a blink. It's a blink in the primordial ocean of consciousness. It's a moment.
Yes.
That all of the issues and the infighting and those spaces where relationship is degraded based on immaturity and innocuous wrong thought is just, it's a waste of this gift that we have. And the one thing that I take away more than anything else is actually how grateful I am for those friendships at those points in my life, and how moving forward for people who I love the way that I really did and do love a handful of the people who I consider friends is. And I know that if Nathan were still alive, that there would be a space for us to have a reconciliatory conversation and to be able to move back into right relationship with one another, because life is very short, and we really, in these bodies and these personalities and this experiencing, only have what, a handful of decades? Even 100 years is a very short amount of time. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm left with.
There was Meta. What were the kids' names?
Oh,
Meta.
um,
It's awful. Yeah.
I do know their names. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I'm drawing a total blank. I'm sure if you asked me when we weren't recording, I would know them immediately.
Yeah. Nathan Freeman, we love you.
Yeah.
Lisa Freeman, we love you. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
his wife and the 3 children, we love you too. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that was the hardest part of the documentary, was when they were talking to the kids at the end. That was,
yeah.
if you didn't see that. Yeah, that was. Those kids don't have their dad now. It's
Yeah. It's really sad.
yeah.
I know
It was
the
really
baby's name is Ira Bell, and she's not a baby anymore, but she's still the
Ira
baby.
Bell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the oldest one might be 8 or 9 right now, and I hope Lisa's doing all right, because she's got to raise them all by herself now. So,
Yeah.
have anything else you want to say about psychedelics or ethnogens?
I mean, do I have anything else I want to say about psychedelics and entheogens? I think, a bit like the anarchist community, the psychedelic community, which is growing exponentially, has a lot of potential crossover. And I know, of course, in Acapulco, there were a number of plant medicine ceremonies that happened. Whatever my opinion of running sacred ceremonies in a conference are, they did help to facilitate interesting transformations for people, both positive and negative.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of the people in the anarchist community are also within the psychedelic community. And I think with responsible leadership, there is a mutual benefit for all peoples in this cross-pollination of perspectives, which help to grant us greater understandings of ourselves and our places here on Earth.
Yes. I remember for a while, Barry Cooper was saying he's going to try to have the largest ayahuasca ceremony ever, and that actually got a lot of negative attention in the ayahuasca scene. I mean,
Yeah, it should do.
Yeah, it's like, what's this about? You just want to, because I don't know, but anyway, that seems like that's all about. That seems to be about all we have to say right now. So it's been a great conversation here. It's been wonderful talking to you. I hope I'll have to get a good screen capture of this sweater you're wearing too. So yeah, so yeah, yes, so we'll stop recording, and I'll talk to you a little bit after this. And thank you very much for coming on, Avi. It's been wonderful having you on here. So bye bye.
Bye-bye.